Now we talked about, well, let's switch over real quick. I just want to touch on, we've touched on these different concepts. So Undu, we said, is Hoodoo, Akan term. Kanche is the term for conjure. We just saw Okomfo in the Hoodoo tradition. The Okomfwa is the Gofa doctrine, and so forth. They talked about Jama, Kakaru, or Johnny Conqueror, and so forth. We showed you a little bit about the Moja and the Ja, the Mojo and the Jack. Let's switch really quickly just so you can see an image. And we did an entire, live on this information, so you can, we'll give you the link for that, but I just want to show you an aspect of it. So what we did in this article is we showed that the term Kanche in the Akhan tradition is the origin of the term conjure. Kanche man and Kanche woman is specifically an Akhan term. And when you see Kanche, to pray, rehearse, or speak a prayer, to invoke or call upon the, they say the fetish, but it means the deity, and Kanche is the prayer, the invocation. And we simply show that Ka means to emit a sound, to utter, speak, say, or tell. It means the exact same thing in ancient Kemet. Ka or Kai, to speak, to say, cry out, call out, tell out. Ka also to surrender, and so forth, surrender oneself and so forth. And then you have Che, to become clear, visible, to bring forth, obtain, and so forth, to salutation, greeting, especially in the morning. When we say Ma Ache, that means I give you Ache. Dawning, that means the coming forward of the sun. So Kanche means to utter incantations to make the spirits come forth. When the sun is in the underworld, so forth, at night, and then it manifests at the horizon, then all of a sudden the darkness is dispersed, light shoots across the horizon and so forth. There's a vitality that's emitted, but also illumination. So you become empowered and you become illuminated. You can see and navigate your way, but you also become vitalized, you become empowered. Empowerment and illumination. So when we say Ka, Che, Che meaning to become visible, clear, visible, to appear, come to light, bring forth. Ka, to speak, utter, say, or tell, to ritual, speak, utter incantations. Ache, to make the spirits come forth, that which was power that was in the underworld to manifest in the seen world. The sun is the great power that was in the underworld in the darkness. It manifests in the seen world to illuminate and empower. When the spirits of the Nsamanfo and the Abosom, the ancestral spirits and the deities operating in the spirit realm, the unseen, and through ritual invocation, they possess and manifest in the seen. Ritual invocation, Ka, to bring the spirits forward. Ache, that is Kanche. And we also show that Che in ancient Kemet, to rise like the sun, and the Medut itself is the sun and its rays just peeking over the horizon at sunrise. So we show that Ka and Che have the same meanings in ancient Kemet as they do in Akan, culture and language and so forth, and as they do in Hoodoo. So Kanche is not a corruption of conjure. Kanche is direct definition from Akan language that's derived directly from ancient Kanit and Kemet, Nubian Egypt, and preserved in North America. So we went into detail about that. So when we look at these various terms, all of them are Akan, all of them are tied into Akan cosmology. Let me give you one more piece before we switch over to that. We talked about the origin of High John the Conqueror and so forth. And just to get down to the definitions. And Jama, well, first of all, in Jama, the individual in Jama, he was an Asafo Hini, a warrior, Asafo, king or head Hini. He was a lieutenant of the Akwamu Hini Ansa Kwao in the so-called 1700s. His people were captured. Yakwamu were at war and so forth. They lost certain war and so forth. Some of them were captured. In Jama, he was the Asafo Hini, basically the general, the warrior king, but that's no different than a general, like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in America and so forth, the head of the military and so forth, the different military forces. He was the Asafo Hini, the warrior king, warrior chief and so forth. He's listed in the Christian War Castle records in Ghana from where he was sold, and also in the Danish records in the Caribbean. He went to the plantation. When you look at the records, he is referred to as King Jama, and some people pronounce Jama as King Jama. The Danish rendering is Konge Joni, and you'll see it's written in English as King John, but that's Konge. The English-speaking people, when they look at the Danish records, they would see Konge Joni, and they would write King John or King June or King John. But that was a corruption of King Jama. The Danish corrupted his name, but his name is in the records. They would say the natives call him King Jama, but the Danish called him Konge Joni. So he led the revolt on St. John's Island, which is a few miles over from St. Thomas and so forth. The Akwamu people took over the island for 6 months. That was the greatest, military, defeat of the Europeans at that particular time in the so-called 1700s. That was about 68 years before the Haitian Revolution and so forth. Now, they said his spirit, he didn't want, they committed suicide instead of being captured. They were not going to be captured and, tortured and so forth. They committed suicide. King Jama, he said his spirit would go into a plant if you ever need to use that plant and so forth to protect yourself and all these different things. You will find that in Jama in Akhan is a certain plant. His spirit went into that plant. So that's a sacred plant totem in Akhan culture. When we get over to North America, all of the plants that exist there don't exist here. So if you have a sacred plant totem and so forth, there are crocodiles in Ghana, but there are alligators in North America. So if my animal totem was the crocodile and so forth, we get to North America, we escape from enslavement and so forth, go into the swamps, we won't see a crocodile, but we will see an alligator that's related as a cousin. So that energy is very similar. Okay, so same thing with plant life. There are certain plants that exist on the continent, then they have cousins or some that are very similar, or some that are different but have a similar energy complex, and the same divinity will govern that plant as well. And we wouldn't have known that because we weren't over here. And once we got over here, we realized, and we asked the Nsamafo and the Aboson and the Earth Mother, Asase Afua, which divinity governs this particular plant. So the Inyama plant, he was named after that divinity that governs that plant. But when we got over here, certain plants they didn't see, but certain plants they did see. There was a certain plant that they did see, a certain root that they did see here in the Western Hemisphere that they were accustomed to seeing in Ghana because they used it in Ghana. The term kaka in the Akan language is also written and pronounced keka or kaka. It's also kaka, also kekao and so forth. Now, keka, which is also kaka, to bite. Keka also means to stir, to move. It also means to touch. And then kaka also means, which is also keka, irritability, fierceness, ferocity. Keka, biting, which also means chewing. And keka boa, a wild beast, beast of prey. Then you have what's important, keka duru, which is kaka duru, a medicine for toothache, but they say, in other words, that's the term for ginger. Kaka, to bite. Kaka, to stir, to touch, fumble, feel, or grope about, and so forth. Kaka means to bite. Kaka means to touch or rub, and so forth. Kaka duru, is the Kaka Duru or Kaka medicine, the Kaka Nduru in the Asante dialect, the Kakadu in the Akwamu dialect. Kakaru is the rubbing Kaka Duru medicine, biting or chewing Kaka Duru medicine. It's the chewing medicine, the rubbing medicine. To chew my root or to rub on my root, that's the Kakaru. And his name was King Jama. So Jama Kakaru came to be pronounced Johnny Conquerroot. And of course, King Jama, who took over the entire island of St. John's for 6 months, he was the great king, His Highness Jama. He was the conqueror, Jama the conqueror. But Jama Kakaru is Jama Conquerroot, and Jama Kakaruru is Jama or John the Conqueror-root. So whether it's Conqueror-root or Johnny Conqueror, we have both dialects in Akan. So we go into detail about that in that particular article. Just to give some background, we did an entire broadcast about that, but let's get to this. So we have these terms. And we said that in the Western Hemisphere, Hoodoo is in America, which is Hoodoo, Jamaica, Obea, which is Obai, Guyana, Komfa, which is Komfo or Komfoa, Akhan. In Suriname, you have the African-American religion, South African-American religion, Winty. We said it comes from the Akan term, Winty. Now, let's get into this notion of the Haint spirit. People talk about what is a Haint? What is this spirit called a Haint? If we look in the Mojo working book, and let me switch over to that one. In Mojo Working the Old African American Hoodoo System by Dr. Katrina Hazard, Haint or Hant, another name for an evil witch-like supernatural being that is believed to chase its victims to their death or to mount them during sleep and ride them like a horse until exhaustion sets in or sunrise appears. Haints are sometimes referred to as witches. Then you have Haint blue, a deep, rich sky blue color believed to repel Haints. Believers use this color paint to protect their windows and doors from entry by Haint. It can still be seen on St. Helena Island, South Carolina today. So that's the Haint and Haint blue and so forth. Where does the term come from? When you look in the Akan language, and this is from the Asante Fanti Dictionary. And hold on one second, let me make sure you can see this. Okay, so when you see the term Haint, you look in the Akan, Asante Fanti Dictionary, the Tree Dictionary, Hinta is this root. And there's a variation of the term Hinta, which is Hintao in the Akan language. So you'll see Hinta equals Hintao. You see that right here as well. What is Hinta or Hintao? What does that mean? And you'll see right here in the Fanti, it says F in this dictionary means the Fanti dialect. So you have the Asante people, who are the largest Akan group. You have the Fanti, which are the next largest Akan group. You have the Akwamu, which is over 1 million Akwamu and so forth. So you have different Akan subgroups. So when you see in the dictionary here, the F, capital F, is saying in the Fanti dialect, instead of saying Hinta or Hintao, they say Hunta. That's how the Fanti say it. The Asante and the Akwamu say Hinta. But you also notice there's a variation, Quinta, but we'll get into that. What does it mean to hide, conceal? To be hid or concealed. He has hid himself. They hid themselves for fear. He has concealed his gold. All that is concealed will come to light. Hinta. And then you have some variations. Hinta, way, the hiding. Hinta, place. Hinta, mu, in secret, secretly, stealthily, by stealth, clandestinely. So when you see these Haint spirits, they're hidden spirits, There are stealth spirits that come upon you and so forth. Clandestine and secret, mysterious, the hinta or the hidden spirits. But we go a little bit further. Hinta bea means a hiding, hinta bea, place. Hinta de, adie means things, objects, or entities. So hinta meaning hidden, and adie meaning things. Then you have hinta sem. Sem means issues or affairs. Hinta sem are those things or issues or affairs. Asem that are hinta, that are hidden. Hidden truth, secret, mystery. So you have these hidden spirits, these unseen or concealed or hidden spirits. And then you feel their effect when they come upon you. Now, that hinta is the root of the term hinting, to excite, rouse, stir up. My heart has been stirred up, my anger has been roused or excited. Hinti, hinting. So you have a hidden, there's a group of spirits that are hinta, they're hidden, concealed, secret, stealth, clandestine, and so forth. You don't see them coming and so forth, but you, as they talked about a spirit riding you at night, when they talk about sleep paralysis, you're asleep, and you feel this heavy presence on you. You try to open your mouth, you can't open your mouth. You try to yell, you can't yell. You try to open your eyes, you can't open your eyes. You try to move your arms and legs, you can't move your arms and legs and so forth. You're heavy, fighting, struggling, until eventually, in different ways, the spirit leaves, and you may wake up sweating and tired and exhausted and so forth. Sometimes that's, conditioned sleep paralysis. Sometimes what they call sleep paralysis. Sometimes it's a discarnate spirit that is pressing you, that's on you. Sometimes it can be a negative spirit, a wayward, discarnate relative, discarnate ancestor or ancestress, or an unrelated spirit. Sometimes you can draw if somebody's doing drugs and so forth, doing cocaine and things like that, but they hang around those kind of people, and the kind of people who were doing drugs and died, and their spirits are still hanging around the crack house and so forth. That spirit can attach themselves to the person who goes over there, and they go home and lay down and go to sleep, and that spirit is riding them, and they can feel that negative energy, and it plagues them all the time. That's one thing. You can also have one of the nsamanfo, one of the ancestors or ancestresses that rides the person or affects them in such a manner. Because when you wake up from that and you get up and you want to find out what's going on with me, what is this mild form of possession that's taking place? And it forces you to go to your nkomre, your nsama nkomre, your ancestral shrine, or to go seek out the services of an okomfo, or an abosomfo, or udumafo, a priest or priestess, to find out what's going on. And when you go to them and they communicate with the abosom and nsamafo, they say, the reason why this mild possession is happening to you consistently and disrupting your life is because it's time for you to go into training to become one of the akomfo, one of the priests or priestesses who become possessed and so forth. It's time for you to serve the community in the capacity of the akomfo. And sometimes people neglect that, quote unquote, call to the priesthood, priestesshood. And when you neglect it, you're like, I don't want to be a priest or priestess. I just want to kick it and, work a different kind of job and go out and eat and have fun and hang out. But you're supposed to serve the community as a vessel that possesses spirit, so you can communicate divine messages of wisdom and direction to our people. And if you're trying to, neglect that, then the nsamanfo will come for you. The abosom will come for you, and they will turn your life upside down as far as you can see, until you submit to the reality that you came into the world to serve as a vessel for their expression within our community. So sometimes that's what's happening, whether it's an abosom, a divinity, or an ancestral spirit that's spiritually cultivated. But then sometimes you can have a negative spirit. It's like somebody can, somebody can see a blind person, with a stick walking, and they may be walking towards the street, and they run over and grab the person and snatch them hard to save them from walking into traffic and so forth. The blind person just feels being snatched by somebody, but they're being protected. Or, a blind person can be walking towards the street and somebody snatches them and tries to steal their wallet. They're being snatched either way, but one is a positive, one is a negative. So you have these hidden spirits, Ptah, hidden, concealed, clandestine, stealth, and so forth. But the way they manifest, excited, roused up, and so forth. Now, that's a definition of a haint. Now, very often they talk about the haint in a negative sense, a spirit that attacks, a spirit that rides somebody, a spirit, and then you'll hear white people talking about, this spirit was riding me, this boo hag was riding me, this negative spirit and so forth, and we got to keep these spirits away. They also talk about hoodoo in the negative sense as well. They'll say hoodoo means witchcraft, hoodoo means sorcery, hoodoo means this. They'll say voodoo means sorcery, voodoo means charlatan, voodoo means devil worship, all that nonsense, because for them, that's something that overthrew enslavement and the so-called slave master, the slaver and so forth. So to them, they'll say that's a negative thing. For us, it's a positive thing. Certain spirits that would attack the whites and offspring while they were laying down in bed, these spirits of enslaved ancestresses and ancestors who are now attacking the whites and offspring and choking them while they're asleep and so forth, to them, that's a negative thing. For us, of course, that's a positive thing. So haint is not always a negative spirit. It's a spirit that's roused up. It's hinting, excited, roused up, stirred up. Just like the definition says, but we'll get into why that is. But let's look at a corroboration of it. We saw Ptah, in a different dialect is Winty, HW. Let's look at why that is in the Akan language. Hinting, it says HW is often written in Fanti where other dialects have merely H. So Winty is the same as Hinta. Winty is the same as Hinti. Ahwinti Mpe is the same as Ahinti Mpe. The different dialects of Akan speakers, some Akan people will say Hinta, the next one, a different Akan dialect will say Winty, HW. Just like Nduru instead of Ndu, Winty instead of Hinta, Winty instead of Hinti. It's talking about, it's still the same definition, a roused up, excited, roused up spirit that's stealth, moving in the background, secret, but then when it manifests, it's roused up and fiery and starting a lot of stuff. That's what a haint spirit is. That's where it comes from in Akhan. Let's corroborate that. And we touched on this earlier. Now we go back to the African-American religion called Winty. We said that, of course, they said that the majority of Africans shipped to Suriname between 1650 and 1800 came from the Akan Fanti-speaking regions and the Ewe, Fon, Nago-speaking areas. Where the word Winty came from must be looked into, but besides the common meaning of air in motion, they thought it meant windy. It also signifies as all activities of the Afro or Afro-Surinamers resulting from and determined by their religious experiences as a practical expression of these experiences. The word Winty is also specifically used to express the idea of a universal entity or spirit. Now, it says here in the footnote, the religious concept Winty signifies 1, the Afro-Surinamese religious system, the Winty religion. 2, the universal spiritual entity, or the creator, quote unquote, God, or the Winty, the great Winty. And 3, a spirit or any manifestation of 2, 4, being entranced or being possessed by a spirit. We therefore write Winty when referring to the religion, the Winty for the creator God, and Winty in all other instances. They didn't know the etymological origin. A couple of the people from Suriname actually reached out to us a few years ago because they saw the work that we are doing, and we were able to show them the connection between Akan cosmology and names of deities in Akan culture, as well as Hoodoo tradition, especially the Akradin Boson, the deities of the 7 days of the week. And they still worship the deities of the 7 days of the week in Suriname, and they have day names like Kwesi and Kojo and so forth, and their own variations. They still worship those deities. They still have deities like Tredriampong, which is Akan. They say Kejiampong and so forth, and Ananka and so forth. And we were able to show them that those are specifically Akan names of deities, and they were very gratified for them. But they didn't know the origin of the term Winty. When this was written, they didn't know the origin of the term Winty. They knew it meant spirit, the great spirit. When they talk about windy, the wind is excited or is roused up. Very similar to a spirit that's wired or roused up. But that's because Hinti in Akan, in the Akwamu dialect is Hinti, Asante dialect is Winty, a hidden spirit that becomes roused up. The wind is unseen, it's hidden, but then all of a sudden, a gust of wind comes by, it's stealth, it's clandestine, it's hidden, it's mysterious, it's secret, but then it's roused up, and that invisible force that you can't see can actually lift a house or a tree and uproot a tree and send it across, the field and so forth. So when these spirits get roused up through ritual incantation, they're in the secret, they're in the clandestine stealth mode and so forth. And when you go into ritual incantation, you rouse these spirits up, and these Winty or Hinta hidden spirits become Hintin. They become excited, roused up, and fired. Now, so that's the corroboration between the Akan in South America, the Akan in North America. The Akan in South America say Winty, and they call the spirits the Winties, and they call the deities the Winties. And let's look at that. 4 ways how spiritual life outside of the Akara, and Akara is the term for soul, just like it's Kra. In Akan tradition, they still use the term Akara. The Goron Winty, spiritual perception and or experiences engendered by the manifestation of the earth. So they have 4 classifications of the deities. They call the deities the Winties, the Winty spirits. They are Goron Winty, Busi Winty, Watra Winty, Tapu Winty. That means Goron means ground Winties or the earth Winty spirits. Busi Winty is the bush spirits, vegetative life. The bush Winties or the bush spirits. Watra, of course, is water spirits. Tapu is on the top, the wind spirits. So they have ground, bush, water, wind. And wind includes, solar energy and fire and so forth, the atmospheric realm. So they talk about the deities governing every realm of creation, and they call them the Winties. That term, of course, it would be Hinti in Akan amongst the Akwamu, but it'll be Winty amongst the Asante and other dialects. And the Winty, as well as Fanti and so forth. And so when some Fanti people were enslaved, Fanti Akan people were enslaved in Suriname, they would call the spirits Winty, the roused up spirits. And we like the roused up spirits. It's not just the ones who are negative, but the fiery spirits that will get roused up that will lead us to war, to kill the slave master. The people in Suriname, the Saramaka, the Maroons, they escaped from enslavement and went up into the mountains, and they've been living there for 300 years, and they still speak Akan language and still practice Akan religion. There's a video you can look on YouTube where an Akan person, a person from Ghana, is taken into Suriname. He's on a tour. He's in a little small boat, and they sail along a river, and they go up into the mountains in South America in Suriname. And it's a Saramaka Maroon village. And once they get there, his guide takes them to the village, and an old man comes out of a little hut. Now, the Saramaka have been Maroons, and they've been living in the mountains for 300 years. They escaped in the 1700s. They fought for their freedom. They were never able to be, drugged back into enslavement. So they've been living in those mountains for 300 years in South America. The little old man who still has that warrior spirit came out of the hut. The brother from Ghana was there with the tour guide. And he walked out to, reach his hand to greet the old man who came out the hut. And the old man began to speak to him in his language. He was speaking that Akan dialect that the brother from Ghana understood. And he was baffled because he's looking at somebody on the other side of the world. He just left Ghana, comes hours away as he's in South America. And some old elder man comes out of a hut in South America and speaks the Akan language fluidly. He's like, they preserved that language for 300 years in the mountains. And he understood everything he was saying because he spoke it fluently. So Fanti speaking people who were enslaved, if you had two Akan people, one who was Akwamu, one who was Fanti, they're in Ghana, and they get captured and taken to, to the slave dungeon, so-called slave dungeon, thrown on a boat. They get to the Western Hemisphere. The Akwamu person is sent to North America. The Fanti person is sent to South America. The Fanti person is going to call the deities Winty, the roused up spirits, the roused up, excited spirits and so forth. He'll say Winty. And the person in North America say Hinti. And Hinti came to be pronounced Haint and later Haint. And the whites and their offspring will try to say it means haunt because they don't know the origin. They'll say Hoodoo comes from the Irish or the Jews and so forth, which is pure stupidity, or coming from the Congo or from the Ewe and so forth. They will always look for other definitions, usually trying to side to themselves. They'll say Haint comes from haunt or saint or haunt and so forth. Pure nonsense. Every term that you find in the Hoodoo tradition, whether it's hoodoo, conjure, haint, shout, goofa, Johnny Cockaroo, whatever, every one of these terms that define the most salient aspects of the Hoodoo tradition are all Akan terms now, and part of Akan cosmology, and they can't be separated from one another. Let's go a little bit further, as we did before with the Hoodoo, the term Hoodoo and the term Kanche. We can do the same thing with Haint to prove it means the same thing in ancient Kemet that it means in the Akan culture, and also that it means in the Hoodoo tradition. That means there's an unbroken tradition. This is the belly of an animal, and part of the structure of the animal, the ka sound or ka sound says ka, but in the Coptic dialect, it represents the H sound. And this symbol right here in the Coptic dialect, this is the Coptic alphabet right here. And when you look for this symbol right here, they're saying this symbol here, ka, and Coptic is ha, the H sound. And when we look for it, you see it right here, the Hori aspect of the alphabet, and that is the H. So when you see this symbol, we know that at least by the time the Coptic dialect came into usage about 2,000 years ago, this symbol right here, instead of ka, it was ha, ha. Now, here's the symbol and all the words that began with that ka, that ha sound. This is in Kinti, it's hanti, hanti, which is hainty, haint. Image, statue, likeness, portrait, figure, a divine form. You see divine form, you see the mummified figure. Second. Okay, and this spelling of it, you see the mummified figure standing from the side view, and you see the beard coming out and so forth. And then you also see the same mummified figure with the beard sitting here, mummified figure, and the shrouded figure seated with his knees up and so forth from the side view and the beard coming out. In the Medutu, that determinative symbol of a shrouded figure with the knees sitting and so forth represents a deity. When you see the shrouded figure here, sometimes it's a deity, sometimes it's representative of a mummy, meaning a spirit deceased spirit, the spirit body, and so forth. So you have that term Hainty. It's a figure, a divine form, mummified body, meaning a disembodied spirit. Not a physical person, a living person walking around, but that mummified form, meaning the person, if it's a person, they transition, and now they are a spirit. What is the root of Hainty? It's hen, to disturb, trouble, rebel, violate, calamity, misfortune, restless, unquiet, disturbers of the peace. That's what a haint is, a spirit that disturbs the peace. On the negative side, as we said, it could be a negative individual who's causing problems. The haint is trying to chase somebody, jump on top of them, press them, and everything else. But another disturber of the peace on the fiery side, on the positive side, is there's enslavement, there's oppression, and that spirit rises up, one of those enslaved Nsamanfo. They were killed in slavery. They're angry spirit, they're a roused up spirit, fiery spirit, Hainty, and they get up and attack the enemy. So, to disturb, to scare, to terrify, to frighten away, hen, disturbance, trouble, revolt, rebellion, strife, opposition. And then, as you can see, storm, commotion amongst the elements, rebels, rioters, disturbance, and so forth. But it's also the title of Haint, plural, Henu, that means more than one, the you means more than one, a fighting god. That means a rioter, a rebellious one, a fighter. Henui, the two fighters, Heru and Set. So you can have someone that brings disturbance, violence, but also revolt. When it's talking about a deity, it's talking about divine order. So that fight, that roused up, excited spirit is fighting or disturbing the peace to restore order because it's a deity. So it's a divine figure, a disembodied spirit. You see the mummified body, that's a disembodied spirit. A haint is a disembodied spirit. What kind of disembodied spirit? The root is hen, to attack, to disturb the peace, to revolt, to rebel, destruction, disturbance, and so forth. That is what a haint is. Same term, same meaning from ancient Kanche to Kemet into Akan language, into North America, and also the spirits, the fighting spirits and so forth, the Winty, HW, Haint, in South America. Then you have Haint blue, and this is the final piece. From Wikipedia, they say originally Haint blue was thought by the Gullah to ward Haint, so ghost away from the home. The tactic was intended either to mimic the appearance of the sky, tricking the ghost into passing through, or to mimic the appearance of water, which ghosts traditionally could not cross. The Gullah would paint not only the porch, but also doors, window frames, and shutters. Blue glass bottles were also hung in trees to trap haints and buhags. But while enslaved Africans of the Low Country and their descendants believed in the protective power of haint blue, the cultivation of indigo to produce the dye energized the 18th century transatlantic slave trade, thereby increasing the enslavement of Africans. Haint blue, and you will see the blue painted on the ceilings here, mimicking the sky and so forth. You look at the ceiling, make it look like the sky, and the spirits, you know, are connected to that in some fashion. So why would you paint it on the ceiling to make it represent the sky? There's a cosmological reason for that. This is from the tomb of Nefertari. And when we visit Kemet, you will see this tomb, be able to go inside this tomb, and you will see they paint the ceiling blue. And then they put the little stars to represent the stars in the sky, but they paint the ceilings blue. This is from the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut, and they do the same thing. We've been doing this for thousands of years. This is from another one of the tombs, Ramesu, the 6 and so forth. That's one of the tombs that we went into when we were in ancient Kemet and so forth. And when we go in May, you can sign up for the trip and come tour with us. And you can go into this tomb, it's underground and so forth. And you see they painted the ceilings blue. There's another piece though. You will see that the female divinity Nut and the male earth divinity, he governs the crust of the earth. Alsar is the black soil, but his father Geb is the crust. Asase Nebedetepe is the earth mother herself as far as the planet earth and the fertile aspect of that, and Asase Nebepet is the barren aspect of that. But as far as the layers, you have Ptah in the core, you have Atem, which is the mantle and Shu, lower mantle, Shu is the upper mantle, and then you have Geb, which is the crust of the earth, and then you see the goddess Nut bent over the earth and so forth. That's the sky bent over the earth, and you see the stars in her body, and her body very often is shown as blue. She is the sky. But this is the inner lid of a coffin, and you see Nut stretched over. This is like if you were laying in the coffin and you looked up, you will see her blue body with the stars all in her body, and she gives birth to the sun in the morning. Her womb is near the east, and her mouth is near the west. She swallows the sun at night. Her mouth is near the western hemisphere. She swallows the sun at night and gives birth to the sun in the morning. So they show the setting sun, red setting sun, and yellow rising sun and so forth. But this is just an image from the side view of the atmosphere of Earth surrounding the Earth and so forth. But the inner lid of the coffin, the roof of the coffin, painted blue with the goddess who is blue with the stars in her belly. This is where this Haint blue comes from, with the ceiling painted in blue representing the sky and also water and so forth. When we talk about water and Haint blue and spirits not being able to cross, negative spirits can't cross the water. In ancient Kemet, when the sun sets and goes into the underworld, there's also when the sun sets, the boat of Ra sets in the underworld and so forth in the west. There's a divinity called Ma'ah, the male divinity Ma'ah, counterpart to the female divinity Ma'at. He's the one that governs the river that divides the line between the physical world and the spirit realm, as well as the river that governs the dividing line between the pristine community of the ancestresses and ancestors and those people who are earthbound spirits. If you lived in harmony with divine order, you will be accepted into the community of the Nananoma and Samafo and live amongst your former ancestresses and ancestors who transitioned centuries ago. You will see those family members and dwell with them in that community for hundreds of years until it's time for you to reincarnate. But if you lived out of harmony with order, you're repelled by those spirits, and you will be the kind of earthbound spirit that's hanging around the place where you died or where you were murdered or where you frequented while you were alive, and you'll be a negative little spirit hanging out just like a homeless person hanging out on a bridge. So, but in order to be able to cross that water, you have to show that you lived in harmony with divine order. And you go before the council of the divinities and so forth, as is shown in ancient Kemet. But, so the spirits who can't cross the water, because they didn't live in harmony with divine order, that blue color repels them. If you lived in harmony with order, you will be accepted amongst the ancestral spirits and deities. So this coloring, the ceiling of the coffin, the ceiling of the home is representative of the sky itself. When you see the earth's crust, and then the blue sky surrounding the earth, this is what you're looking at with regard to the shrines of Geb and Nut on earth. The spirit of Nut is operating the atmosphere, the spirit of Geb is operating through the crust of earth. But that is the blue ceiling. Now, there's one other piece with that that's important, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Hold on a second. Let's see. In our book, Akradim Bosom, We talk about, for example, the Tuareg people in North Africa. Okay, so we talk about the Tuareg people in North Africa. These are ancient Nubians living west of Kemet, who've been there for over 10,000 years. Afrikani people. Ancient Libya, which is west of Kemet, was called the Khan land. Ancient Kanat, the Kanu people, a title of the Nubians west of Kemet, the Kanu people, ancient Akhan people, and so forth. Some of their descendants stayed in that area and didn't migrate west, and they still live there today. Some of them migrated west and reestablished the Ghana Empire 2,000 years ago. 1,000 years later, migrated to the forest belt, and hundreds of years after that were taken from there and brought into the Western Hemisphere during enslavement. But some of them stayed in the region of west of Kemet, which is Libya today, but it was called Khan in ancient times. They are called the people of the blue veil. They use blue dye, henna, and so forth on their skin. But you look at the ancient Libyan ruler, at a certain point, these Libyans had taken over the rulership of Kemet. Osorkon II. You see he has the blue dye on his skin and so forth for his arms and legs, but of course his face and body is, reddish brown, just like this brother here. But we've been doing that blue dye for a long time in the same regions, because that blue is a sacred color for our people. Amongst Akan people, the Kanu, the ancient Libyans. And when we look at the term, even though they use the TH for the tethered rope, TH equals sometimes the Coptic, this symbol here is the Ka sound, so that's Kanu. The Coptic dialect, the Ka sound is Kanu, and this is why we know that this symbol is not Tehnu, but it's Kanu, the Libyans. They're called the Kanu, or the ancient Khan people. Khan means Nubians. Kanu, the first people, the Nubians, the Libyans, the ancient Akan people, Kanu people west of the Nile River, in what is today's Libya. These are some of those people and so forth. These are descendants of the ancient Kanu, ancient Akan, west of Kemet and so forth, wearing the blue on their bodies. And why is that important? The color blue is sacred to our people. You see Onyame, the supreme being or deity, the great god in Akhan culture. Onyame was the great mother. This is an image of Onyame. Sometimes he's shown with blue skin, and he's blessing the king and so forth. But sometimes he's shown with black skin. And let's just give you a quick image of on the Akanfo Nanason page, just so you can see. This is an image of Amen, and this is Amenet, the great father and great mother. They are called Nyame in Akan and Nyamewa in Akan and so forth. So that's the great father, that's the great mother. Just wanted you to see the balance of the two. But now we get back to sometimes, for example, in this image, you see Onyame, which is Amen, with blue skin. Sometimes you see him with black skin. And of course, the blue merges into the black. Now, the sky is blue, the infinite, no beginning, no ending, the infinite one during the day. When you look into the sky, there's no beginning and no ending, and it's all encompassing, and it's blue. When the sun sets at night, and if you're in an area where it's, not a lot of lights and so forth, it becomes pitch black to the point where you can't see your hand in front of your face. And the infinite one is black, no beginning and no ending, and the infinite black one surrounds all things. So During the daytime, the skin of Amen and Amenet is blue. The infinite one, the one that has no beginning and no ending, that's all encompassing. And during the nighttime, the skin of Amen and Amenet is black. The one that has no beginning and no ending, the infinite one that surrounds and encompasses all things. That's why blue and black, and they merge with one another at sunset and sunrise. Sunset, the blue sky begins looking black and so forth. At sunrise, the black begins to dissipate and the blue manifests. So blue and black go into one another. In Akan, the word bri means black or dark. Obri bini means a black person. Obibrini, sometimes they shorten it to obibini, but it's obibrino. Obibrini, to be, ni, obibri, black. Bri, black, dark, bri, blackness, and so forth. Obibrini, when you go to Ghana and they say a black person's obibrini, obi means someone, bri means black, ni means to be. Obibrini is one who is a black. Obibri or abibri fo is the group of people fo who are obibri, black. Then you have ebibi or ebibri, MAYN, the black ebibri or MAYN nation. That's the term for Africa in Akan. Obibri MAYN or ebibi MAYN. Ebibri MAYN becomes sometimes contracted when people are speaking at regular conversation speed. Ebibi MAYN, but it's really ebibri MAYN, and you'll see it spelled both ways. Ebibri MAYN or ebibi MAYN, but it's ebibri MAYN properly. The MAYN, the nation, that's ebibri, black, the black nation. Obibri ni, a black person. But you also have bri, dark blue cotton, yarn, or cloth. Dark blue color. To dye with the dark blue. The dyers trade the art of dyeing. Obibri shefo, the dyer in blue. One of those people who makes the blue dye and dyes the cloth. These people who are dealing with that sacred color blue and dyeing cloth because it's a sacred color. Bri, meaning black. Bri tama, a blue cloth. But also Odwirafo, a fellow of unusual power. The word black, bri, is also one dealing with who has unusual power. And to corroborate, the other term for black or dark is tum, or tum, black or dark, or tum, a black person. But tum also means authority, power. Otumfo, one who has great power or strength, a strong man. Otumi, ability, power, might. So the word for black, tum, is also the word for power, tum. The word for black, bri, is also the word for power, Odwirafo, one of unusual power. And of course, black and power is the same word, so we don't even have to say black power, but we say black, that does mean power. Tum, black, is tum, power. Bri, black, is bri, power. Why is that? Because the infinite one is blue as well as black. But it begins with black and so forth. And so you see the bri meaning black, but bri, dark blue cotton yarn or cloth, and the ones who are the dyers in cloth. That goes all the way back to the ancient Libyans, the Kanu of west of Kemet and so forth, the people of the blue veil, dyeing their arms black and so forth, and dyeing the cloth black and all of that. But that sacred switch from black to blue, and the blue is in the sky and so forth, that's the sacred spirit. The great Winty, as they call in Suriname, the great Winty, the great spirit, the great divinity, the great Winty is Amen, the great blue one, whose body, just and Amenet, is the sky itself, the blue sky and so forth. Now, this is a scene from the tomb of Tutankhamen. And when we go to Kemet, you will visit that tomb of Tutankhamen, and you will see the scene in person, as well as the body. The only mummified body that's inside of a tomb in Kemet in the Valley of the Kings, you know, going underground and so forth, and they have the body in the tomb, is Tutankhamun. All the other bodies of the kings and queen mothers are in the museums and they're preserved that way and so forth. But when you go to the Valley of the Kings and you go underground to the tomb of Tutankhamun, his body is in the tomb. And we posted a video of that when we visited. So, but this is the opening of the mouth and eyes. And that's a specific ritual. And you see the little instrument that he's using, Tutankhamun is going to use on Asar to open the mouth and eyes. And let's go back to one more. Okay, so when you look at the text, the chapter of opening the mouth of Asar, the scribe Ani, it says, "Be open my mouth by Ptah, untie the bandages which are upon my mouth, by the deity, the Umtoro of my town. Come then to Huti, provided with Hekau, ritual incantations. Untie the bandages of Set, which fetter my mouth. Repulsing Atem shoots them, he at those who would fetter me with them. Be open my mouth, be unclosed my mouth by Shu, with weapon his, that of iron of heaven, he opened the mouth of the deities with it. I am Sekhmet, I sit upon the great western side of heaven. I am Sahu the Great, in the midst of the Bayou, the spirits of Anu, as concerning the Heka, or the ritual incantations, all the words all spoken against me, these may resist the deities, them, and the cycle of the gods and goddesses all. And what he's saying there is, and that image that we just showed of Tutankhamun opening the mouth of Asar. When they talk about Asar dying and so forth, and the mummified body and so forth, and they go get the tool, open the mouth, so the spirit of Asar can speak once again. And they'll talk about, in other texts, the opening of the mouth and the eyes. Once the mouth is open ritually, then the spirit can speak again, the spirit can move again, the spirit can work its way through the ancestral realm again, and so forth. That spirit is no longer restrained. Now it can communicate and communicate with the other ancestral spirits and live in harmony. On a mundane level, we're talking about ritual incantation to open the mouth of the person. We talked about sleep paralysis, and the spirit gets on the person and they can't move, can't speak, can't move their arms, can't move their legs, can't open their eyes and so forth. There's the ritual invocation of the opening of the mouth and eyes. Once you invoke the Nsamafo and the Abosom, then you can repel that. And when you speak the name of the divinities or think them, then you can open your mouth, your eyes, you can move your arms and legs again and so forth. And once again, what we said was, sometimes there's a negative spirit trying to control somebody. Sometimes there's a spirit leading you towards what you're supposed to be doing, and you've been stagnant in regular life. So then they put that pressure on you to force you to see what's going wrong and what you've been neglecting so you can get on your purpose. All right. Okay, so that is the presentation we wanted to give you all.